Hello everybody, welcome to this quick little video from a real estate photographer meant for realtors. Just 5 tips to help you make photo shoots more seamless, efficient, and higher quality. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. First tip is about flow. So this is just about how the flow of the photo shoot goes, how everyone moves around, just some insights, tips where possible here. Obviously, the fewer people and pets present at the home, the better. It's not only awkward to continually tell people to move because they either don't realize how wide a wide angle is and they don't realize that they're just kind of standing right in the shot, or they don't realize that they're like visible in a reflective surface. They think they're hiding, but then I say, I can see you in the fridge. and, but it also kind of eats into everybody's time too, shouting back and forth, saying like, could you please move? And if people and or pets have to be present at the house, they're not able to leave, the best practice is to usually stay at a far end of the home and then just kind of swap once as the photographer moves through the house. That typically works best, just kind of hanging out in a room, door closed, not visible, until the photographer says, hey, let's switch spots. So that works best. Pets, if they're able to be kept in rooms or in crates, that works better than leaving them outside, because they like to watch through the back patio doors, and that makes getting certain angles difficult to achieve. So just know that if people and or pets are present, staying out of the way as much as possible will make it easier for pretty much everybody, and the shoot will go faster that way. Second tip is looking into aerial before you book it. So if you're getting any kind of aerial content, drone photos, drone video, check the flight grid. Now, I am in Grand Junction, Colorado, but this can apply to really wherever you are. Go look online for a flight grid of the airspace of the town you live in. As of the recording of this video, you can go to opensky.wing.com. I'll have a link to that in the description. Set it to part 107 up at the top, not recreational, because part 107 is the flight clearance that you need to be able to fly commercially. So you go on there and you zoom in to your town. You can type the address to your actual property up in the search bar as well. Now, what you're looking at here is a big circle around the airport. Everything in the orange has auto approval for flying, anywhere from 50 feet all the way up to around 400 feet above ground level, which is all the stuff outside that circle. The red area is a 0 flight grid. Now, what this means is it is not eligible for auto approval, and I have to get FAA clearance in order to fly the drone in that area. For whatever reason, this seems to be kind of common across the board. It is very common to have these applications for clearance just get denied, flat out. I have never had one be approved in a 0-foot grid, and it seems to kind of be the case all across the board that the FAA just doesn't really seem to like to grant any kind of flight clearance in these 0 flight grids. Some of this has to do, I think, with drone pilots not being safe. It's kind of a wild west right now in terms of legislation and legality as far as like how you're able to fly and interact with other aircraft in these airspaces. And I have seen realtors fly up recreational drones and take real estate photos, which is technically illegal. You have to have a Part 107 license to be able to fly commercially and take commercial photos. So if you have a property that you want to get aerial content for and it's within the 0 flight grid, expect that to probably not happen unless you're booking maybe way far out. The FAA recommends up to 60 days, which is ridiculous and doesn't really work in the real estate market, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So check on there. Pretty much anything in Fruita, Redlands, Palisade, you're good to go. But if you're right within town, definitely check to see if your property falls within the 0-foot grid. If it doesn't, you should be fine. If it's right on the edge, I might not be able to get certain angles, but I just want that to be open, out in the open, clear, and understandable for all realtors as far as why sometimes aerial content can happen and why sometimes it can't. Third tip has to do with time, weather and time. So some people have a misconception that earlier in the day or later in the day is better to shoot because of the angle of the sun. Not really the case. Partially cloudy days make for the best conditions for shooting interiors, not necessarily exteriors, because clouds can make the sky look a little more washed out and overcast, and that's not, very attractive. But as far as interiors go, partially cloudy days make for the best conditions because the light is more soft, it's more diffused, and there's less dynamic range within the image. I'll throw up an example here of a very bright sunny day outside and an interior that is not well lit, and these types of photos are the hardest to edit and make look balanced. So the less bright it is outside, typically the better for interior content. And the best time frame during the day is kind of in the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. range. That kind of 2-hour window on either side of direct high noon. Because the sun is looking right down. There's not a whole lot of shadows being cast. If we're shooting at 8 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, we might have more direct shadows coming in, like a backlit or front lit house. The shadows will be more harsh. It's just not going to look as pleasant typically if it's a cloudless day and the sun's just able to hit it directly. So that's that. I also wanted to add in the time category, don't expect more than maybe 10 to 15 minutes of light staging or moving objects from a real estate photographer. Most of the heavy lifting should be done before the photographer arrives, because we're busy analyzing the property, focusing on composition, looking for the angles. That's what we're being paid to do there. But I personally am always willing to do about 10 to 15 minutes per appointment of just kind of helping move some, few objects around that are easy to move. I'll always move trash cans, hampers, stuff like that if I feel like they're kind of clogging up the shot. So don't worry about that stuff. But as far as like furniture or just a room full of items that will take 30 minutes to move, that's just not going to happen, and it should have been done beforehand. Number 4 is cost. So understand that advanced editing is not always simple, and then it can be complicated. It can take time, which in turn means it may cost money if that time sink is notable. So for example, like sky replacements and images, if they are done well, they take time and therefore they cost. Same with grass replacement, item removal, stuff like that. I sometimes have people say like, oh, you can like edit that out in Photoshop, right? And I have to say, well, it's probably going to cost, because that thing you're asking for is more advanced than just a simple, 3 clicks of the mouse. But like simple edits, which I typically don't ever charge for, include fixing overt color casts on the walls, which I just kind of have wrapped up into my normal editing process anyway. I like to add very subtle black gradients to televisions just to kind of make them less of like an eyesore in the image with its really sharp black reflections. So that kind of stuff I have relatively automated and quick in my workflow. But extra stuff where people say, can you Photoshop that out? It's like, well, time is money and money is time, right? Number 5, this one, last but not least, lighting. Double check your lighting. Ensure that all lights and light bulbs are functional. And if you have the resources and time, aim for getting an even color temperature of bulbs with a good solid lumen count. Now, in the modern age, we've kind of moved away from wattage being what determines brightness, and we just go by lumens now. So as you can see in this graph here, the typical incandescent bulb that you're accustomed to, the 60 watt that is very generally used in houses with because of its brightness, is about at 700 to 800 lumens. As you can see, LEDs have gotten way better at achieving that amount of lumens with far less wattage, thus saving you on your energy bill. Now, when it comes to interiors, typically somewhere in the 3,000 to 5,000 Kelvin color temperature range is best. Some people like to really go orange. I personally, in this office here, I have something closer to 5,000 because I like the more, I don't like any kind of color being given off on any of my monitors, so that when I'm working, I have, accurate colors. I'm not being distracted by orangish lights or anything like that. But most interior light bulbs are in the 3,000 to 5,000 Kelvin range, usually about 4,000. And you can go on Amazon and you can find standard A19 light bulbs in the 4,000 range at about 800 lumens, 60 watt equivalent. And you can get 24 of these for pretty cheap. So it might be in your best interest, not only for the photos, but also for showings, to just make a pass through the house, spend 20 bucks, fix all the light bulbs to be the same color. And I would say try to avoid the overly tungsten lights unless you think it's appropriate to kind of highlight a scene, give it some more, tonality, atmosphere. But just understand, when we are taking photographs, unless I'm doing like my premium photography, which utilizes multiple shots per image and different flash exposures, we're not mixing the white balance on any of these photos. So I might have, a properly white balanced photo for this room, but all the way over in the back, maybe it's super blue or super orange, because the lights in that room don't mesh with the lights in this room, and so you get something that looks really odd and distracting. So if you're able to, and it's appropriate for the mood and the vibe of the house, get an even color temperature of bulbs throughout the entire house and make sure that they're nice and bright. That is one of the best things you can do to not only make great photos, but also just to have a more inviting place for people to come when they see the house for showings, and you're probably going to sell it faster. So those are my 5 tips for real estate photography shoots to help make it more seamless and efficient. I hope I didn't drone on too long, and I hope that that was all helpful for all of you. I hope that all of these don't come across as like, do this or I'll be disappointed. No, this is just something to make my life easier and therefore your life easier, and to get a higher quality product out of the situation, and also to just have it go faster. So I hope that was all helpful for you. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, Godspeed.